Welcome to Whisper Secrets, where the most intimate mysteries come to life. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you never miss a secret. Now, let's pull back the veil. I've always been a patient man. That's what everyone used to say about me. My friends, my family, Sarah. They all knew me as someone who didn't rush into decisions, who thought things through, who made sure the people around him felt secure. But what they didn't know, what I never let anyone see, was that beneath that calm exterior, beneath the carefully constructed image of a perfect life, there was a ticking time bomb. And it was about to explode. It started innocently enough, or at least, that's what I told myself when I first began to notice the small changes in Sarah. The late nights at work, the sudden quietness, the way she started spending more time on her phone. I didn't want to think anything was wrong. She had been my wife for 5 years, and everything seemed fine. But slowly, the nagging feeling in the back of my mind began to grow louder. I began to notice things. Her phone would buzz at odd hours, and when I'd glance over, she would quickly pick it up and walk away. Her schedule, once predictable, became erratic. We used to have dinner together every night, but now, she'd say she was working late or had an urgent meeting. It wasn't much at first, small, seemingly innocent things, but something inside me snapped when I came home one evening, a few weeks ago, and found her sitting on the couch, her phone hidden in her hands, her eyes glued to the screen. It wasn't that she was on the phone. I had no problem with her having a social life. But when I noticed the way she quickly minimized the app the moment I walked into the room, something inside me shifted. I couldn't let it go. And that night, I decided to find out what was really going on. I started by going through her things. I know, it sounds bad. But I didn't care anymore. I was desperate for answers, for some kind of confirmation that my gut instinct wasn't wrong. I searched her phone, her laptop, her emails. And it didn't take long to find it. There it was. An email, sent from her work account, to a man I didn't recognize, someone named Jake. At first, I thought it was nothing, just a colleague. But then I saw the subject line. Dinner tomorrow night? I opened the message, my hands shaking. Jake, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. It's been too long. I'm looking forward to our time together. Let's meet at 8 p.m. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. What the hell was going on? I couldn't breathe. My pulse raced as I kept reading through more messages, each one more incriminating than the last. The next email was even worse. She had sent a text that read, I miss you. Can't wait for tomorrow night. I'm so glad we're doing this again. It hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I had trusted with everything, had been cheating on me. With some guy named Jake. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. I needed to process it, to figure out what my next move would be. But deep down, I knew what I had to do. I needed to make her feel what I felt. The sting of betrayal. The pain of being lied to. I couldn't let her think she could walk away from this without facing the consequences. The following days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every time I looked at her, I saw nothing but lies. She came home late that night, as usual, but I didn't greet her with the warmth I used to. I stood in the kitchen, waiting for her to come in, to face me. When she walked through the door, she stopped short, surprised to see me standing there, staring at her. James? She asked, her voice uncertain. Why are you still up? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stepped closer, holding her phone in my hand, the evidence staring back at me like a slap in the face. Do you want to explain this to me? She froze, her face going pale as she realized what I was holding. James. Don't lie to me. I cut her off, my voice sharp and cold. I've seen the emails. The texts. The dinner plans. The lies. How long, Sarah? How long were you going to keep this from me? Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved by them. I was done being moved by her. I never meant for it to happen, James, she whispered, her voice shaky. I didn't want to hurt you. But I felt neglected. Alone. And Jake, Jake? I spat, the name tasting like acid on my tongue. So this is how it happened? You're just going to throw away everything we had because of some guy at work? Is that it? I didn't mean for it to go this far, she pleaded. I'm so sorry, James. I never wanted to hurt you. Sorry? I shouted, the anger boiling over. You think sorry fixes this? You think your little apology is going to make me forget what you've done? I don't care about your regret, Sarah. You made your choice. I threw the phone on the table, watching it slide across the surface with a crash. I've spent my entire life building trust with you. And you threw it all away. For what? Her tears were falling freely now, but I wasn't moved. I couldn't be. Not anymore. I can't do this, Sarah, I said, my voice quieter now, but no less firm. I can't be with someone who has broken me like this. I'm done. The next few days were filled with chaos. She begged me to reconsider. She asked for forgiveness, pleaded for another chance. But I had already made my decision. She had crossed the line, and there was no going back. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, that life, with her. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every smile, every touch, every moment we had shared felt like a lie. The following week, I packed my things. I filed for divorce, and the moment the papers were signed, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I wasn't free yet, but I was on my way. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone else change it. But I wasn't done yet. I needed closure. I needed to make sure she understood what her actions had cost her. And I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she had lost. I called Jake. I found his number through Sarah's phone, and I knew exactly where he lived. I didn't call him to apologize or explain myself. I called him because I needed him to know something. I wasn't going to let Sarah get away with this. Not without a price. The moment I called Jake, I knew there was no going back. It wasn't about reconciliation, or getting some kind of closure. It wasn't about finding some kind of understanding between us. No, this was about one thing only, retribution. It was the price of betrayal. And Sarah would have to pay. The phone rang 3 times before Jake picked up. I could hear the hesitancy in his voice when he spoke. Hello? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Jake. We need to talk. There was a pause on the other end. Who is this? You know exactly who this is, I said coldly, my voice devoid of emotion. We both know what you've done. I could hear him scramble on the other end of the line, the panic rising in his voice. James, look, Don't try to apologize. I cut him off, my anger boiling over. You don't get to apologize. You don't get to fix this. What you did was unforgivable. I stood up, pacing around the apartment as I spoke, my body tense with rage. You thought you could just take her from me, didn't you? You thought I wouldn't find out. But I did, Jake. And now it's time for you to understand the consequences of what you've done. James, I'm sorry, okay? I never meant for it to get this far. It was a mistake, Jake stammered, trying to placate me. But I wasn't listening anymore. I didn't care about his excuses. I didn't care about his regret. No, it's too late for that, I said, my voice now cold as steel. You crossed the line, and you'll pay for it. But not just with words. You'll pay with everything you've taken from me. I knew where Jake lived. Sarah had mentioned it a few times, and it wasn't hard to put the pieces together. His address wasn't difficult to find. I didn't need to waste time talking to him further. I had already made up my mind. The next step was simple. I had to make sure he understood the magnitude of what he'd done. Not just to me, but to Sarah as well. The way he had taken something from both of us and destroyed it. I drove across town to his apartment building, the weight of everything hanging heavy on my shoulders. There were no more second chances for him. He had already taken everything he could from me, and now I was going to take something from him. It was just after dark when I arrived at Jake's apartment. I parked across the street, sitting in the car for a moment, gathering my thoughts. This wasn't going to be easy. But it didn't need to be. The purpose wasn't to make him understand, it was to make him feel the consequences. He needed to know that no one could betray me, especially in the way he did, and get away with it. I got out of the car, my footsteps echoing in the night air. As I approached his apartment, I noticed the light under the door was on. He was home. Good. I wanted to make sure he didn't have a chance to run, to hide from what he had done. I rang the doorbell. It took only a few seconds for Jake to open the door, his face registering shock and panic when he saw me standing there. His attempt to force a calm demeanor crumbled the moment our eyes met. "James," he said, his voice shaky, eyes darting around like he was trying to figure out what to do. "What's going on? I didn't expect you to show up like this." "Of course you didn't," I said, my voice low, my gaze steady. "But I'm here now. And you're going to listen to me, Jake. You're going to understand exactly what you've done." "I don't know what you're talking about, man." Jake tried to play it cool, but the nervousness in his voice betrayed him. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, pushing past him into the apartment. "You really think you can sleep with my wife, my partner for years, and just get away with it?" I asked, my voice tightening with every word. Jake backed up, hands raised as if trying to defend himself, but I wasn't having it. "No, James, it wasn't like that. We didn't plan it. It just happened." I didn't even let him finish his sentence. "Shut up," I growled, my patience running thin. "I'm done with your excuses." He looked at me, desperation creeping into his eyes. "Look, I'm not here for you to explain yourself. I'm here to make you understand the cost of what you've done," I said, stepping closer to him, making him back away in fear. "You thought I wouldn't find out. You thought I'd just let it slide, but here's the reality for you, Jake, you've lost everything. Your job, your reputation, everything you've worked for. And it's all because you couldn't keep your hands off my wife." His face turned pale as the gravity of my words sank in. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of thinking this was just an emotional outburst. No. This was the price of betrayal. And he was about to see the consequences. I walked over to his desk, where I had seen his laptop. With a few quick motions, I opened it and started browsing. I wasn't about to leave anything to chance. He had left a trail I was going to follow. "What are you doing?" Jake asked nervously, trying to stop me from going through his things. I didn't answer him. I simply clicked through the tabs until I found what I was looking for: his email exchanges with Sarah. The late-night conversations. The plans. The secret meetings. It was all there, plain as day. "You really thought I wouldn't find this, didn't you?" I asked, looking back at him, my voice like ice. "I didn't think you'd go through my stuff, man," Jake said, almost pleading. "Please, James, don't do this." "You're damn right I'm going to do this," I said, my anger flaring up again. "You're going to lose your job, Jake. You're going to lose everything you've built. And I'm going to make sure you understand exactly how it feels to betray someone." I sent the emails to myself. It wasn't enough for me to just know what had happened. I needed to make sure the world knew. I needed to make sure he felt the consequences. I turned back to him, standing tall, knowing that this was the moment. "You'll never work in this city again, Jake. I'll make sure of it. I'll send these emails to everyone in the company, to your friends, your colleagues. You'll be nothing but a joke." His face drained of color as he realized the weight of my threat. "James, please don't. Don't ruin my life." I leaned in close, my voice low and deliberate. "You ruined mine first. Now it's time for you to pay." I turned and walked out of his apartment, leaving him there in his panic, surrounded by the mess he had made. As I stepped into the hallway, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. He was going to pay for what he'd done. He was going to feel the consequences of his actions. But this wasn't over. It wasn't enough yet. There was still more I had to do. The adrenaline from my confrontation with Jake didn't fade quickly. I could still feel the rush, the power, the satisfaction of taking control of a situation that had been ripped from me. The phone call, the threats, the destruction I'd set in motion, it all felt like a surge of energy coursing through me. But then the reality set in. I had done it. I had made Jake feel the weight of his actions. But now, I had to deal with the fallout. I wasn't naive enough to think that there wouldn't be consequences. This was only the beginning, and the next steps would be even more dangerous. The first thing I did was make sure the emails I had sent myself were safely backed up. I didn't trust anyone. Not Jake, not Sarah, and certainly not the systems in place at the company. I saved everything, just in case. I wasn't planning on going to the police or anything dramatic like that. But I knew there was a lot more at stake than just exposing Jake. There was still the matter of Sarah. I needed to make sure she knew that I wasn't going to be a passive victim in this anymore. I had been wrong to let her dictate the terms of our relationship, wrong to keep pretending that everything was fine when she had been breaking my trust all along. The marriage was over. But this wasn't just about ending things. This was about making sure she understood the weight of what she had done. I called her the next day. It felt like the right thing to do. No more hiding, no more pretending. I needed her to understand that I wasn't the man I had been when I first found out about her affair. I wasn't the man who would cower in the corner while she made excuses for everything. I dialed her number, feeling my pulse quicken as it rang. She picked up on the second ring, her voice soft and unsure. "James? Is everything okay? Where are you?" I asked flatly. "We need to talk." I'm at the house," she said, her voice shaking. I could hear the hesitation. The guilt. "Get in the car," I said. "I'll be waiting for you at the cafe on 7th Street. We need to talk about this, Sarah. It's time." I hung up before she could say anything else. When she arrived, I didn't give her a chance to speak. I didn't want her words, her apologies. I wasn't interested in her guilt anymore. I had already heard it all. She sat down in front of me, looking tired, her eyes red from the lack of sleep. She had clearly been crying, and I could feel the pity tugging at me. I didn't want to feel pity for her. Not after everything she'd done. "You wanted to talk, James," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "I'm here. What do you need to say?" I took a deep breath, my hands clenched into fists under the table. I had never been a man of action. I had always been the one who let things slide, who kept the peace, who tried to make everything work. But that was over now. "I know about everything, Sarah," I said, my voice firm. "I know about Jake. I know what you did. And I'm done." Her eyes widened in shock, but she didn't speak. I could see the panic in her face, the realization that I wasn't going to be the man she had left behind. "I don't need your excuses," I continued. "You've already ruined everything. You chose him, and you hurt me. You broke me, Sarah. You broke us. James, I never wanted this. You have to believe me," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes again. "I don't want to hear it," I said coldly. "What you did was unforgivable. But I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to show you the cost of your actions. Because there is always a cost." Her face paled, and she shifted in her seat, her eyes darting between me and the cafe window. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. The image on the screen was clear, Jake's emails, the messages, the pictures. Everything. It wasn't just the affair, it was everything they had built behind my back. The lies, the deceit. "This is what you've done," I said, my voice now a quiet, controlled fury. "You didn't just betray me, Sarah. You destroyed everything. Your career. Your reputation. And now, I'm going to make sure the whole world knows what you've done." Her face turned even paler. "James, please. Don't do this. I made a mistake. I'll do anything to fix it. Just please, don't destroy everything I've worked for." "You don't get to make that choice anymore," I replied. "You had your chance. You made your decision." I sat back, watching her squirm. She was begging now, her voice breaking, but I didn't care. This wasn't about saving her. It was about taking back control. I had been too passive for too long. And now, I was going to make her feel the same helplessness I had felt when I first discovered what she had done. "I'm going to send these to everyone in your company, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. The woman who lied to her husband. The woman who broke the trust of everyone around her." She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Please, James. You don't have to do this. I'll lose everything. I'm not interested in your tears anymore, Sarah," I said, cutting her off. "I've seen enough." I stood up and walked away from the table, leaving her there in that cafe. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had already taken control. I had already made my decision. And now, the price of her betrayal was going to be paid. The next few days were filled with the fallout. The emails, the pictures, the messages, they all went out. I sent them to her boss, to her coworkers, to her friends, to anyone who would listen. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I wasn't going to let her get away with destroying everything I had worked for. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about making sure she understood the consequences of her actions. And when the dust settled, when the damage had been done, I knew that I could walk away knowing that I had finally taken control of my life. I didn't hear from Sarah after that. I didn't need to. Her life had already been destroyed. Her career, her reputation, everything she had worked for was slipping away. And she had no one to blame but herself. As for me, I was free. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I was done with the past. I was done with the lies. And now, I was ready for whatever came next. The silence after everything felt suffocating. Days passed without a word from Sarah, and though I had expected the fallout, nothing could have prepared me for the scale of the destruction I had set in motion. It wasn't just her life that was ruined, it was everything she had built with him. Every part of her identity, the life we had both worked for, was now in tatters. But for the first time, I felt nothing but satisfaction. It was twisted, but I knew what I had done was right. I had taken back the power. She had taken so much from me, and now, I had ensured that she would feel the sting of the very choices she had made. It wasn't about winning, it was about making her face the consequences of betraying me. But even in that satisfaction, I couldn't escape the guilt. I kept telling myself that I had done this for my own peace, that I had taken control. But as the days wore on, I realized something more sinister. I had allowed the anger to consume me. I had let the need for revenge define my every move. A week after I sent the emails, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from my lawyer. He had been handling the divorce proceedings, and I knew this wasn't going to be good news. I opened the message, my fingers almost numb as I read the first line. "James, Sarah's lawyer has filed a formal complaint. She claims that you've damaged her career with the public dissemination of private messages and emails. She's asking for a restraining order and full legal action against you for defamation." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the message settling into my bones. I knew this would happen. I had expected it, even. But now that it was real, the reality of what I had done, how far I had taken this, hit me hard. I hadn't considered the legal consequences of what I did. I had been so wrapped up in making sure she paid that I hadn't stopped to think about what I could lose. But now, the stakes were higher than I ever anticipated. I was no longer just the victim in this story. I had become the aggressor. I called my lawyer immediately. A few days later, I found myself in his office, staring at the legal documents in front of me, trying to process everything. The walls felt like they were closing in, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. I had come this far, and I wasn't about to let her play the victim now. "You've put yourself in a tough position, James," my lawyer said, rubbing his temples. "These accusations are serious. Defamation, emotional distress, even slander. And with the evidence you've spread around, it's hard to claim innocence." "I know," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But she deserves this. She deserves to understand the damage she's caused. He looked at me with a mixture of concern and frustration. I understand that you want justice, James. But what you've done, it's going to be hard to undo. And it's going to come back on you. I stared at him, the reality of his words sinking in. I don't care. I'm not sorry. She destroyed me, and I'm not going to let her get away with it. My lawyer sighed, sitting back in his chair. I know you're angry, and I know you feel betrayed. But there's a difference between justice and revenge, James. If you don't back off, if you don't at least try to come to some resolution here, you're going to lose everything too. The next few days were a blur of meetings, legal threats, and the constant feeling that I was losing control of everything. The phone calls from Sarah's lawyer didn't stop. They threatened lawsuits. They threatened everything. But I didn't back down. I couldn't. But as the pressure mounted, something shifted inside me. It wasn't guilt, exactly. It was the weight of what I had done catching up to me. I had set this chain of events in motion, but I wasn't sure if I had been the one in control the entire time. A week later, Sarah reached out to me. This time, she didn't ask for another conversation. She didn't plead for forgiveness. Instead, she demanded it. I picked up the phone, my hands shaking as I held it to my ear. James, Sarah's voice came through, a mix of fear and fury. This has gone too far. You've ruined me. You've ruined everything. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. I didn't respond right away. Her words stung, but I didn't let her see it. She had no right to call me now, not after everything. Not after she had torn my life apart. You're the one who ruined everything, Sarah, I said, my voice low and controlled. You chose to betray me. You chose to destroy what we had. And now you want to play the victim? You don't get to do that. James, she continued, her voice shaking now. You have to understand that I didn't want this. But you've gone too far. You've destroyed me. You've destroyed my career. You've ruined everything. And I will fight you until the end. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of her words sitting heavily on my chest. You made your bed, Sarah. Now you have to lie in it. Her silence echoed through the phone, and I knew it was over. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choice. She had destroyed me, and now, she was facing the consequences. But I had set my own course. I had made sure she would feel the cost of her betrayal. As the days passed, the tension grew. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't sleep. The weight of what I had done kept pressing on my chest, and no matter how much I told myself I was justified, the reality of my actions was too heavy to ignore. One evening, as I sat in the dim light of my apartment, I realized something important. Revenge, justice, whatever you want to call it, didn't make me feel better. It didn't make me feel like I had won. It didn't make me feel like I had gotten anything back. It just made me feel empty. The days after everything fell apart were a blur. I was still reeling from the consequences of my actions, the choices I had made, and the road I had walked down. The revenge I had exacted on Sarah and Jake had been satisfying in the moment, but now it felt hollow, like an empty victory that didn't actually bring me peace. I was living in a fog, constantly chasing the rush of what had happened, constantly replaying the confrontation with Sarah, the look in her eyes when she realized that I wasn't the man she could control anymore. But now, with all the pieces in motion, I had to deal with the fallout. And it was coming in waves. The first warning came in the form of a letter from Sarah's lawyer. It was an official document accusing me of harassment, defamation, and causing emotional distress. She had officially filed a lawsuit against me. The truth of it hit me like a slap across the face. I should have expected it. I knew she wouldn't go down quietly. But part of me had hoped, naively, that the damage would have been enough for her to see the consequences of her actions, and just walk away. That wasn't going to happen. The letter was a formality, a way for Sarah to regain some control over the situation. Her lawyer made it clear that she wasn't going to stop until she had me punished for what I'd done. I had made her pay for what she'd done to me, but now, the tables were turning. I called my lawyer immediately, preparing for the battle I knew was coming. The first conversation with my lawyer was a wake-up call. We discussed everything: my actions, my motivations, the consequences of them. He wasn't worried about the legal side of things, but he was concerned about how much I had let this take over. Revenge was an ugly thing, he said. It never made the victim feel better. It just created more pain. I knew he was right. I had used the rage to fuel me, but now I felt like a shell of the man I used to be. The satisfaction of seeing Sarah and Jake brought low was fading, and what was left was a bitter emptiness that gnawed at me every moment. I didn't want to be this person anymore. But it wasn't just about stopping Sarah or Jake. It was about finding a way to undo the damage I had done to myself. One night, after a particularly draining day of legal battles, I went for a run in the park, as I had done countless times over the past few months. The rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement helped clear my mind. It always had. But tonight the quiet of the park was louder than usual. I stopped for a moment, standing on the edge of the path, watching the streetlights flicker in the distance. The cool night air felt crisp on my face, but there was something more, something in the stillness that made me realize how much time I had spent consumed by my rage. How much I had allowed this situation to define me. What now? That question had been haunting me. I had made sure Sarah faced consequences, but what did that really mean for me? Was this the life I wanted to continue living? Was I really free, or was I just stuck in an endless cycle of pain and revenge? The next day, I decided it was time to face Sarah one last time. I didn't know what I expected from the meeting. Maybe I thought she'd apologize again. Maybe I thought she'd try to make amends. But deep down, I knew there was nothing left between us. This wasn't about saving anything. It wasn't even about forgiveness. It was about closure. And I needed it. I met Sarah at the same cafe where we had once shared so many moments. The irony wasn't lost on me. It seemed fitting, in a way, that this was where it all ended. When she sat down across from me, she looked like a different person, tired, defeated. Her eyes were red from crying, but she wasn't looking at me with the same defiance I had seen before. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need you to understand that I regret everything. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I just want you to know how sorry I am." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since everything fell apart. She wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't the woman I had loved. She was just someone who had made a choice that had led us here. "I don't need your apologies, Sarah," I said calmly. "I don't need you to regret anything. I need you to understand that I'm done. I've already made my peace with everything." Her eyes filled with tears again. "James, please," she said, reaching for my hand. "Please, just let me make this right. I know it's too late. But I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you." I pulled my hand away, looking her in the eyes. "You've already hurt me, Sarah. And nothing you say can take that away. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm not holding on to this anymore. I've moved on." She was silent for a long time, the tears still falling. I could see the regret in her eyes, but I didn't feel the need to comfort her. I didn't feel the need to hold on to the past. It was over. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I've let it go. And now it's time for you to do the same." She didn't say anything else. She didn't try to beg me. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. She simply nodded, wiped her eyes, and stood up. I watched her walk away, her shoulders slumped in defeat. And in that moment, I felt a weight lift off my chest. The burden of holding on to my anger, to the need for revenge, was finally gone. I walked out of the cafe, feeling lighter than I had in months. The sun was setting as I made my way home, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was carrying the past with me. I wasn't the man who needed to punish anyone anymore. I wasn't the man who had to hold on to every injustice. I was free. The road ahead was mine to walk, and I was ready to take the next step. Thank you for being with us on Whisper's Secrets. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, drop a comment, and be sure to subscribe. The secrets are waiting to be revealed. See you soon.